All right, hearing, well, let me call for a vote. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes as is?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion carries. We'll approve the meeting minutes from the January 12th meeting. The next order of business is to approve the commission bylaws and our last, oh, go ahead, Tom.
Madam Chair, you didn't call for a vote. You just did the motion in second. So it's a
Oh, I'm
formality,
sorry.
but you want to call for a vote after.
Thank you.
It's a small thing, and I apologize for interrupting, but
No, it was totally my oversight. So I had a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion officially carries. Thank you. All right. Our next order of business is to approve our bylaws as a commission. And Clerk Moss, that is the document I'm hoping that you could pull up. But during our January 12th session, Tom presented some recommendations to us that would reflect our needs more accurately. And I'm going to review those quickly. I think there were 2 or 3. And if there is a motion to follow once we review those documents or that document to approve the bylaws, that would be our next order of business.
So in red, you'll see the amendments as Tom presented 2 weeks ago, and then the strike through would be the language that would be taken out. This is referring to the meetings and then the action that it's approved by a majority of 3 salary commission members. Any questions, concerns? Okay.
Is someone willing to make a motion to approve the updated bylaws?
I make a motion to approve the updated bylaws.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All right, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So we'll move forward with the updates provided and adopt those as our commission bylaws. Thank you. Right. So our next order of business is to review the timeline, and Clerk Moss, if you wouldn't mind displaying that document. So this would outline what we would cover in our upcoming meetings that we have scheduled. And we've already taken care of a lot of business today on January 26th by approving the meeting minutes as well as the bylaws. But the next few steps and next few meetings would really focus on those comparators and giving us some time to have interviews with the commissioners, and that's slated for February 23rd. And I really just wanted to share this with all of you and solicit any feedback if you have suggestions on rearranging things or adding things. I'd like your feedback now.
Looks doable to me.
Okay. Monica, what about you?
Yeah, on the external, who is also working? I'm working together with somebody else.
Yes, and I wasn't sure, Kirk Moss, if we had heard from Casey about attendance for today's meeting, or just participation, but it's Casey who did the external comparators last
Okay,
session, but just want to make sure she plans to participate, so.
absolutely. I will make, I'll just reach out probably, and I will follow up in our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
I also had the question regarding the internal, because I couldn't remember who that was. So it must have been Christian. Is that who it was?
Yes, so,
Okay.
so yes, Heike, it's you and Christian and Casey and Monica. And Christian had a conflict today, and I've asked if he has upcoming conflicts, if he could let us know, and we can try to plan to give those updates when he's here for the external or internal comparators. But if you could reach out to him as just a follow-up in between this session and our next meeting, that would be great.
Yeah, I will do that.
Right. Thank you for displaying this. I think we are set with the timeline, unless Victor, do you have any feedback or questions regarding the timeline?
No, I think I agree with everybody. It looks, based on what I've heard and experienced, it looks good.
Okay, wonderful. So next we'll move on to discuss the internal and external comparators. And part of that process is, especially for the external comparators, is identifying those areas that we would want to consider to collect data on. And I'm not sure if we have at our fingertips the list that we used at our last for our last review, but that should have been provided in a previous packet. So encourage all of us to look at that information. And then as you connect with your pairing to do the review, coming back with a recommendation to our next meeting of those areas that we intend to review. And then as a commission, we can vote on those for our next meeting. So that would be for the external comparators. And then for internal, Heike, do you recall, or can you share a little bit about how you all navigated that process a couple of years ago, just narrowing down what jobs were in scope?
Yeah, we took a look at the job descriptions at the time, and then grouped the jobs, comparable jobs, based on what was contained within the job description. And I actually had a question on that because I didn't know because I don't remember last time that we shared the groupings and why we did the grouping. So I didn't know if we should do that as a subcommittee or whether we should bring that to the whole group and do that. And then along that same line, I reached out already to Sherry and asked for updated information. And there was a complete restructure in, I think it was July of 2021. So it was after we came up with our recommendations. And so and by the way, Sherry was absolutely phenomenal. She responds immediately and she gives all the links and all the information. So thank you very much, Sherry. And so now I have all that information. I have not gone through it yet. And I think we're still waiting for some additional information from the HR department. So I was just trying to gather all of the information before we start, shuffling through it and trying to identify what information we have. Go ahead, Sherry.
I received an email back from Eva, and the point of contact person is going to be Joanna Small. And I've had other communications with her. So once she's back from vacation, we'll connect up and I will get some of the answers to the questions that you were asking for. And then when you know who it is that you're looking for more specific detail, I can help you with that information.
Okay, great. And a lot, because I know I asked, the job duties, and if it's still the same, and if they have job descriptions, it may answer those questions with the current job descriptions.
Right.
Thank you for that. And Heike, to go back to one of the questions that you asked about just your grouping and thought process around that, I think once you and Christian can connect and see what you have, if you can share that methodology or thought process with the commission, and that'll help us when we're thinking about our final report and how we explain our findings and what we're recommending. But I think, you know, within your small group, you all can determine that, and we'll just be curious and want to know so we can support and discuss that further. So thanks for calling that out.
Thank you.
And Sherry, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just giving a very high level update about the restructuring that happened in July of 2021, just kind of what the intent was and if there were particular jobs or areas that were impacted as a result of that.
Yeah, just give me a second where I look for my documents. So they did a restructure in July where the county administrator had announced a redesign for the future. And what that did was it changed from a number of directors, direct reports to her so that it became what is called a C-suite. I provided a document to Heike, which lays it out as to who reports and how it reports. In that restructure, the one group that was completely restructured was support services, and support services was separated out into different areas, which again is in that same document that I provided. And so that restructure started taking place in July, and it's at what point is it completely restructured? I think the reporting structure, but I can confirm with Joanna how that reporting structure, where it is at what stage. But she does have a list of an org chart of how it would look for the different groups reporting. So they now have the county administrator, and under the county administrator, there's going to be assistant county administrator under different functionalities. Plus, there's also going to be separate direct reports to the county administrator in the C-suite, which is HR, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the CFO, and can't remember the others, but again, it's in that document and how it's laid out. So the other part that went into that was we have on the public website where you can look and pull all the jobs. And because of the restructure, you can pull by administrator, you can pull by director, you can pull by look under the various names that were within that restructure. And then tied to that, I also provided the link to what where all the compensation, current compensation is within that grouping.
Yeah, and just for your information, Sherry, I was able to access that. So I did gain access and was able to pull it up, and it looks great. So I can go through
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. That's good. So you guys can decide who you want to review. I can't tell you what. I can just give you the information.
No problem. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sherry. All right. So the request going into our next meeting, I think is on February. I'll confirm the date of our next meeting. But if you could connect with your comparator partner and talk through which counties for the external comparators you plan to review, and then hike a similar what positions internally, we'll come back to our next meeting, report those out, get support from the commission, and then continue the journey of plugging all that information into the spreadsheets. And is there any other comments or questions just regarding the comparator process? I think a lot of the dialogue will happen once we start seeing the information and understand what we're looking at. But any questions that anyone has? Okay. All right. Well, our next topic is really in preparation for our discussion with the commissioners. So this is the opportunity for us to hear directly from the commissioners who will ultimately be the folks that are impacted by the recommendation of this committee. And I know we heard from them kind of what their day-to-day work is. There were questions around how many hours does each person spend in the work that they do to support their respective areas. And we had a set of questions that we asked, and then there were some kind of organic follow-up questions that came up. But I wanted to pull together a list at this meeting that we can proactively share with the commissioners in preparation for that meeting with them on February 23rd. So I'd like to go around and just ask each of you, kind of what things are you curious about? Accidentally muted myself. What questions are you curious about, and which ones should we plan to ask them when they come? So I'm going to start with you, Heike, and then I'll go to you next, Victor, and then Monica.
I actually had a question on that because I know when we interviewed the last time, I believe we captured some of the scope of responsibilities and the day-to-day and the budget. And I didn't know if that was maybe I should go back and take a look, because I wasn't sure if that was included in the package. And if it was, I think this was one of my questions to Sherry, if anything has changed, because if it hasn't changed, then I didn't know what additional insight we were trying to gain.
Yeah, I think as part of the internal comparator work, those were some of the items that were collected, just the scope, what programs or different things did each of them have. But again, I wasn't part of that subgroup, so you may want to check, but this
No,
was,
I mean, but I mean, even for the comparators for the external, because
Yeah.
I think we used the data that we collected from them.
yeah, but it wasn't through this kind of interview process that we're planning to have on the 23rd. The intent of this was really to hear from them, hear how the salary might impact them and their lives and their ability
Got it.
to do this work. So it was, and we can have a different intent, but I think we tried to get all of that information offline, and this was just more of a conversation with them. Does that
helps?
Okay. I'm glad we record these meetings because we can go back to and look at what happened during those conversations. But I can share what I'm curious about, and we'll just go around. But I am curious if what was recommended by the commission a couple of years ago helped in their perspective or made a difference. And a lot of the desire of creating this commission was to promote more diversity in these roles and the people's ability to become elected in these positions if they've seen any movement or changes in that regard. So those are the two questions I would want to pose to them. And if anyone else has anything, feel free to just jump in and I'll capture them.
One of the things, I know we spent a lot of time the last time, but it was that whole part-time, full-time. And I didn't know if we still had a part-time commissioner and then the full-time and how that was impacted with the salary, if it was impacted at all. So that was one
great question.
One of my questions.
Tom, are you able to weigh in on that?
I'm not sure.
I can give you some more context or.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the time we were doing our review, there was one commissioner that worked as a part-time commissioner, and our recommendations that we were putting forth were for full-time commissioners. So it was, we had to kind of delineate what was our scope of work within the commission. And there was a whole lot of dialogue between the commission as well as that particular commissioner, in having the ability to do this part-time and costing it out part-time. And
Yep.
it was just kind of not something that the commission contributed to. So we were just curious where things landed with that.
Well, I think they ended up setting his salary based on on a percentage of your recommendation. Based
So
on
it was prorated based on
Okay.
FTE.
Yeah, I think that's the way they ultimately, I can confirm that, but that's my recollection from reading the documents.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay. Victor, I saw you come off mute.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Monica.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, that was actually one of my questions in regard to, like, I didn't know that you could get elected part-time. Do you promote that? Or do people run, when they run, do they say, I'm going part-time? It just seems like, maybe it's not part of our equation, I guess, but I don't know if we're taking that into account with the recommendations. I'm still catching up, by the way. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what you all did in previous years.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Victor. Maybe Tom, I see your hands up, so I'll pass that to you.
Or I would defer to you too if you want, but Victor, that is a great question. The answer is that Commissioner Rogers was actually on the commission at the time the charter amendment passed, and he chose not to go full-time. He has a full-time job and viewed it as a burden, and so it was a change in the terms of his employment after he was already employed. So he has also said that we don't know, but he said he's not running again, that this is his last term. So for those reasons, the decision was to just allow him to continue as a part-time. But no, you run for the position, and the position is a full-time position, and all future commissioners will be full-time.
Thank you, Tom. That's helpful.
Awesome. That helps.
Great. Monica.
Thank you. Another question is that will impact the recommendations possibly is the budget and budget changes for this fiscal year. Are we interviewing with somebody internally, and I don't know, this person, maybe Sherry, who can share with us just the highlights of the budget and budget changes?
Sherry, you're on mute.
I was going to be sending the committee members an email out to join in a budget discussion that they're going to be talking about the gap in the Washington County revenue and expenditures. And I will make sure I get that email out to everyone tonight. It's an invite to come and listen and ask any questions that you may have.
Thank you,
And
Sherry.
Monica, were you trying to get to, do we have a certain budget for these salary recommendations that we need to work within?
Yeah, if there are any restrictions, or major changes on the budget. I mean, I think the last update that I read about it was that there was going to be, the budget was shrinking
Yes.
for Washington County. So if there's some major considerations for us to take into consideration, for us to be aware.
Well, we'll look forward to that invite, and maybe if we're not all able to attend, one of us can report back once that happens and we can all be informed. Anything else we would want to know from the commissioners? And like I said, some of the follow-up questions are really where some of the meat comes from in the discussion. So we don't have to capture everything, but I did want to provide them with just kind of a short list so they know what to expect. Okay, I think we are set with questions. And Clerk Moss, are we confirmed to have them attend on the February 23rd meeting? Is that a go?
So for the February 23rd, Commissioner Treese can be available and Commissioner Fye can be available after 3:30.
Okay,
And then Commissioner Willie and Chair Harrington would prefer if to be on March 9th, if that works for the commission.
okay, great. Thank you for that. Okay, well, we have our list. Let's see what else we have on our agenda for today. So those were all of our business items for the agenda today. One thing we can discuss, since we do have some time, is are there any other interviews we'd like to conduct to further support this process? And maybe Clerk Moss, you could help me validate this, but did we speak with the county administrator during our last session?
You did not. You spoke with the Eva Labonte, the chief HR officer on that, but yeah, you did not interview the county administrator.
Commission, do any of you see value in interviewing the chief HR officer or the county administrator as part of this process?
I think there's gonna, at least for the internal, there's gonna be value in talking to the HR, the head of HR, because of if there, and this was one of my questions as well on how they group comparable jobs and what factors they use to set salaries. So I think that would be important. I can get the information, but I think it would be important to be able to ask some of the questions.
And Heike, with us talking about the comparators at our next meeting, would it make sense to see if she happens to be available for the February 23rd meeting? Would that give you enough time to have those informed questions for her?
I believe it would, so long as I got some of the information ahead. I think she's she's currently on vacation.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, we can, Clerk Moss, if we could get her on the docket at some point, maybe no later than the first March meeting, because I think her feedback will really inform our comparator work. So if we can get her sooner than later, that would be great. Any other thoughts on who we may want to interview or talk to?
I had a question about how the whole component of the recruitment of encouraging folks to run who are of diverse backgrounds. Is there like somebody that we're consulting with, or we're like same thing, like just interviewing and trying to get ideas from people? Because I'm just wondering if everybody seems to struggle with this side of things. I mean, I've seen politics at the local, state, and federal level, and it's always the same issues. Like there isn't enough diverse people to run for these, especially these types of positions. So I was just wondering if, as we talk about this and salary is probably a huge component to it, but like, is there somebody that we're consulting that is an expert in this, or are we just relying on, I don't know how was this
I think I know where you're getting at, Victor. Yeah. And I know that this commission was formed because of a vote from the Washington County residents to form it for that very reason. But I think one other interview that we could request is to meet with the chief DEI officer, which is a new role that's part of the county, and I think part of the C-suite that Jerry mentioned earlier. So can we request to meet with Tricia Tillman as part of the process?
Absolutely.
Okay. So maybe I think, Victor, if I can give you an assignment,
sure,
and I can help you with this. But to think of a list of questions, and you can bring this back to the commission at our next meeting, things we would be interested in finding out from her and just how her work is informing the support of bringing on more diverse officials and having that opportunity. So I think that would be a great addition.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
have a question. I don't know how or if this information is available, but I mean, part of this was to set the salaries so that there would be more interest in the positions.
Right.
And I'm wondering, when there was an election, were there more candidates that threw their hat into the round that would support that, you know, we were on the right track with our salaries, or is that information available at all?
That's a good
So
question. Yes, Clerk Moss.
on that question for this, so we did have 3 commissioners run in the 2022 election. So there was 2 candidates that ran for chair. The chair ran for re-election against 1 opponent. Commissioner Treese was up. She had 1 opponent. Commissioner Willie was up. He had 2 opponents, but they had to withdraw because they didn't meet the residency requirements of the district per the charter. So there was a total of 5 people that ran for the 3 commission openings.
And do we know the demographics of those candidates as well?
So the demographic of
The ones
that ran against them.
right?
So they were both, one was female and white, and the other was male and white.
Do we keep demographic information on candidates, or we?
That would be whatever they would basically provide in their voters pamphlet or
Okay.
in any of their information, but the county would not track that piece. The county does track for the boards and commissions, and Ms. Tillman can speak to that
Okay.
demographic there.
Okay, that'd be a good question to have on our
Right.
list. And I am curious because you mentioned the opposition or the people who went through the process with the current board members. They were disqualified because of resident requirements. Could that information be shared with us too? Just curious of what those requirements would be, because it could be another lever that could be called out by this commission of something to review as another way to support more diverse candidates. Just thinking about that, if people were excluded for that particular reason.
Yes, so currently the residence requirements are mainly set by state law and then the
Okay.
charter. And for Washington County, it's the person, they have to be 18 years old to run, and they just have to live within the district for at least 2 years prior to the election.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. All right. Well, I think we have a good list of people to talk to, and I hope if, you know, some other ideas or people come to mind, we can try to fit that into our timeline. But I think just given the work we have ahead of us, we have some of those key stakeholders or key people that we would need information from. Are there any other topics or items that anyone wants to cover before we adjourn? Okay. Well, Clerk Moss, is there anything that I need to do before I adjourn the meeting?
No, so next meeting will be February 9th at 3 p.m. Zoom. So the calendar invite it'll be the same Zoom link on it. So I will just update the packet and the agenda with you, Madam Chair,
Yes.
for that, and we will send that out February 2nd and include that in the email to everyone.
Great. And One thing that I did want to confirm and that I'll do a reach out to Casey and just confirm that she can attend our next meeting. And I'll have to review the bylaws, but if someone is no longer able to attend or participate, I'd be interested in a process to try to elevate Victor into an actual voting role. So just putting that on the radar if for whatever reason, someone's not available to participate. Right, well, I will call the meeting adjourned at 3:40 and really appreciate all of your time. And we got to wrap up before you had to leave, Victor. So
Yeah, this is
good
great.
luck with your interview.
Yes,
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye, take care.
Thank you.